Hi, welcome to Beginning Cooks. Have you heard of beef Wellington? I have, but I was never quite sure what it was, so maybe you're like me and you can't really picture it. Well, beef Wellington really is beef sushi. That's kind of how I like to think about it. It's cooked beef, but it's beef that's wrapped with mushrooms, sometimes other meats, herbs, and then in a flaky crust and then baked. And you cut it into thin little slices and eat them. It's very fancy, but surprisingly simple. I got this recipe on allrecipes.com, uploaded by someone named Normala. So it's a few basic steps. Let's try it and have some delicious, fancy beef Wellington. First, preheat your oven to 425 degrees. For this recipe, you need around 2.5 pounds of beef tenderloin. And the cut can vary based on what you prefer, but definitely get your beef to room temperature before you start cooking with it. That will help ensure more of an even cook. You will also need 17.3 or 17.5 ounces of puff pastry sheets. But we need to thaw it, so make sure you set this out along with your beef to come to room temperature, or at least not as frozen. While your oven is preheating, you'll want to chop up an onion, a regular white onion. So start by cutting off the top and bottom, just so you cut the root off. Cut it in half, then peel the outermost layer off of each half. That's just an easy way to work with onions. And then because we want them chopped, you don't have to go super thin with your slices. And then bend your knuckles. Keep your thumb tucked out of the way. Alright, I'd say that's about half an onion chopped. Do the same with your other half. I am going to lightly oil my pan. And you can spray it as well. And you can use a regular baking dish for this. I just don't have a good suitable one right now. Get my beef in there. And cook your beef for 10 to 15 minutes. Or until it's brown. Now we need to raise our oven temperature to 450. Unless you're using glass like me, then keep it at 425. For this recipe, you will also need to beat 1 egg yolk. Just the yolk. So break your egg, split the egg, and then transfer the yolk back and forth between the two halves. This is the easiest way to separate it manually without equipment. Okay, pour the whites out, and again, you're going to have a little bit of egg white still, not a big deal. But it's mostly yolk, and that's what we want. If you have a little bit of shell, get that out of there. Then make sure you beat it. Once your beef is browned, and it's been about 10 to 15 minutes, keep your oven on and remove your beef from the oven. And all these juices staying in the pan, keep those in there. But transfer your beef and let it cool completely to room temperature. So I'm going to put mine on a plate and put these juices into a small saucepan. We're going to use that later. Now take a large skillet, put it over medium heat, and melt 2 tablespoons of butter in it. Now that the butter has melted, add in your chopped onion, and you need half a cup of sliced mushrooms. And I bought mine fresh and already sliced. Now we're going to saute this for 5 minutes until nice and soft. So just stir it around and make sure it's evenly cooked. Don't be afraid to go past 5 minutes. You really want everything to shrivel up and come together. And I've seen a lot of beef Wellington videos where people even cut up the mushrooms a lot and make it almost like a finely ground paste that gets heated up. So don't be afraid to go past 5 minutes. Now in a small bowl, we need to mix 2 ounces of liver pate. This might not actually be liver pate, but it is liver, so I think it's close enough. And 2 tablespoons of softened butter. And I'm just going to use a spoon to lightly mix these together. Alright, they're mixed enough now for my purposes. Now let's roll out our pastry sheets. Oh yeah, they're nice and room temperature. I'm putting mine on parchment paper. Nice and soft. You're going to need the whole package's worth. So roll out your second one. Put it lightly on top. I'm just going to put these together at the seam. It'll roll up nicely. First, put down your onions and mushroom mixture. And this is a little different than the way I've seen some beef Wellingtons made. Some completely make it into like a dried out paste. I think that's the more official way. This is kind of like the simpler version. And a lot of this you should apply directly to the beef. But I'm just putting it on the dough to make it a little easier. Now on top, we got to add our liver pate and butter mixture. Maybe my butter could have been a little more softened. Again, this is a very crude beginner version. But it's going to taste delicious, I'm sure. Now lay your beef down on it. I've made sushi once and I did not roll it very well, so I don't see this going much better. But you know what? It's all about that taste. And really, you would want to spread some of your stuff on top as well, depending on the style you're going for. So, pinch everything, roll up the ends. You know what? This looks better than I thought it would. That's often the case when you try a recipe. Even if you think it's ugly as you're making it, the final product a lot of times looks better than you would expect. First though, I'm going to want to brush this with a little bit of our egg yolk that we beat. Don't use it all because we need to brush both sides of it. Oh yeah, this is going to help give it a nice golden color. Okay, let's save most of it for the top. Get someone to help you if you can, or slide it onto... Okay, flip it, yeah. There we go. Mine came open a little bit. There's not really that much you can do about that. Just be very careful with it. And again, brush it with your egg yolk. Bake this in your oven that's preheated to 450 degrees for 10 minutes. Then we're going to lower the temperature to 425 and bake it for another 10 minutes. If you're like me and used glass, you're going to do 425 to 400. 10 minutes at each temperature. While your beef Wellington is in its final 10 or 15 minutes, bring your small sauce pot with your beef juices to a boil over high heat. Then you need 2 tablespoons of red wine and 10 ounces of beef broth and boil for 10 to 15 minutes until it's slightly reduced in volume. My beef Wellington is nice and brown now. Take it out, set it in a nice place to cool a little bit, and make sure it stays warm. After your 10 or 15 minutes, remove it from heat, and then you can strain it if you want. If there is a lot of things in your meat sauce, you can strain it. But then pour this directly onto your beef Wellington. I tried my beef Wellington and it was pretty good. The beef was nice and cooked, but still a little pink. The crust was really flaky and golden and warm. The mushrooms and onions gave it a nice creaminess to it. If I had to give a few recommendations to make it better, I probably would have chopped up the mushrooms and onions a little finer, really made them into a paste. I would have really made sure that the beef was uniform so that it rolled really well. But all in all, this was a good, quick, and easy beef Wellington. So if you like this video, please subscribe. I'm doing all sorts of cooking videos for the next 3 weeks. And you can make this and you'll be so proud of yourself. It's so easy, you can do it. Thanks for watching.